Hello, my name's Selena and I am running out of light, so let's get this video done. I have still not gotten used to the time change. What else is new? Today's video is going to be me going over my thoughts on the books that I predicted in like September-ish that would be 5 stars. So these are my end of year 5-star predictions and whether they were actually 5 stars or not. There are 10 books to talk about, although I think I only talked about 9 in that video because I forgot one. Just accidentally left it out of the list, but I'm gonna add it back in for this video. And the first one of the 5-star predictions that I ended up reading was Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh. This is a novella, a low fantasy novella, and it just sounded wonderful to me because of the folkloric inspiration. This kind of retells the Green Man folklore, and it also follows a gay romance. So that was really interesting in a historical setting as well. And so all of that tied together to make this beautifully, like wonderfully short and sweet little novella that was so cute, that combined like my favorite like English folklore vibes with like Victorian or like Regency England vibes, plus a really sweet relationship at the center. So I read this, I did in fact give it 5 stars, and I went on to read the sequel and I also give that 5 stars. So this one was a hit. I was spot on with thinking that this would be a 5-star prediction. The next 5-star prediction was The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. So I really wanted to read this. I have planned to read this many times over the year, and I did in fact read this in October. And this one, it's kind of follows multiple perspectives, but the main two are Lynn, who is the daughter of this emperor who keeps control by stealing his people's bone shards from the back of their ear and using it to power his constructs, which are these magical beings made of bones that basically spy on everyone and everything in the kingdom. So he keeps a very tight rule over an empire, and he has this daughter who he's trying to train in the bone shard magic, but the problem is she doesn't remember who she is, and he wants her to know who she is and where she came from before he teaches her the magic. And then we also have another man who is looking for his wife, who mysteriously disappeared like 5 years ago before this story, I think. It may be closer to like 6 or 7, but he is looking for his wife, and he accidentally gets roped into the like, I don't want to say business, the business of like child smuggling away from danger. So he's not smuggling them like to put them in danger. He's taking them out of danger, away from this, I forget what they call it, but the process where you get your bone shard taken out of you. So he begins saving children and gets a reputation. And so those are the main 2 perspectives you follow in this. It's like an epic fantasy that is it goes through like politics and all the secrets that this empire has, and it is just so good. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars, so it wasn't a 5-star it wasn't a 5-star, technically, so it wasn't like a success in that way, but I still really like this book, so I consider that a success in itself. The next book that I predicted would be 5 stars was Master of Sorrows by Justin T. Call. I didn't know very much about this going into it, other than I knew that it was like a coming-of-age story where it's going to be very, very long, and by the end of this series, our main character will be a Dark Lord. So I liked this. I didn't love it. It was like a 3-star. I thought it was very much like a prequel to a story, and that is like what this book is. It just is. And I found a lot of the plot to be very boring. I didn't find the characters to be very like likable for me. Like, I didn't attach to them. Not that they're like all bad people or something. They're not. They just weren't enjoyable for me to read about. So this was a 3-star. It was kind of a miss. The next book I no longer have a copy of because it got very wet. And that book is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I predicted this would be 5 stars because it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I mean, that's kind of a good formula for me. And this one was, it was 4.5 stars, so it wasn't 5 stars, but it was a success because I did really, really, really enjoy this book. I haven't talked about this in a wrap-up, so if you want to know about this book, I will tell you a little bit about it right now. It was a new release, and it follows 2 sisters in this kingdom. In this kingdom, when there is a first daughter, she is for the throne. She's going to become queen. And when there's a second daughter, she is for the wolf. They take there being a second daughter as a sign that this wolf needs to be appeased. And the wolf is like this monster, they believe, that lives in this literally blood-sucking forest surrounding the kingdom. So they believe to appease the forest, to appease the wolf, they need to sacrifice the second daughter to him. And so our main character, Red, is a second daughter, and she is sent into the forest, and the forest is really blood-sucking, but there's just more going on with both the wolf and the forest and herself than she could have ever imagined. And this is a very typical Beauty and the Beast story, but I loved it. It was the right formula. It worked. 4.5 stars. Here's the one that I forgot to mention. Name of the Wind. I thought this would be 5 stars. I took a risk by making this 5-star prediction because I wasn't fully sure whether I would like it, because I do hear some mixed feelings on this. Some people say it's genius and other people say it's not, and it missed the mark for them, and I was worried about which I would fall into. Well, I read it recently and absolutely freaking loved it. So it is wonderful. It is beautiful. It was a 5-star. It is my favorite, I think. Yeah, definitely my favorite of this crop of books that I picked up. So good. I adored this book. And then the next 4 we're gonna see a pattern. They're all books that I did not finish and pushed down my TBR for one reason or another. So let's just get into those. The first one of them is Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. I pushed this book because I went to pick it up. I don't think I had I was like kind of on a time crunch, or like I was trying to put myself on a time crunch. And this is a book that's very thick. It has very like dense pages, in my opinion. Like the writing is it's large, but it's also very close together on the pages. So it's like a lot of words per page. It's a lot of commitment. And the writing style, I read like a chapter or 2 of it, and the writing style was very distant, and it was a little bit harder for me to get into than some of my favorite writing. So for this one, I am going to come back to it. I am going to read it next year, hopefully, but I just need to be in the right headspace to read it, because everyone who I have seen pick this up recently has adored it. So I really want to give it a try still. I don't know if it'll be a 5-star prediction. The experience with the writing has kind of made my hopes go a little bit down for that, but I'm still hoping to really like it. Next, another one that I did not finish, My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. I loved Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. The issue with this book is, again, I got a chapter in, I was not willing to deal with the classic sort of writing style, the slowness that I know is coming from Daphne du Maurier. So the issue with Daphne du Maurier, I read her book a long time ago, so it's kind of hard for me to remember what I exactly loved about Rebecca. Like, I know it was like the atmosphere and the writing, like I loved a lot of things about Rebecca, but Rebecca also pretty much instantly grabbed me, whereas this didn't. But I also think that's because I didn't know what to expect with My Cousin Rachel, and I think it's going to take a bit to get going, whereas Rebecca it felt like it started a lot quicker for me. The other thing with Rebecca is I remember taking like a month to read it, and My Cousin Rachel, I was very, very busy this semester, so that's another excuse. I did not have the brain power to power through Ninth Reign or this. The other thing is I read a ton of classics for 4 years in college, and I'm out of college. I'm in college, but I'm out of the English major. I'm now like in a graduate program for teaching, and I have not had to read a classic in a while, so I have been trying to pick them up and not had a lot of luck, and or I've had to read them for my class that I have been working in, and they were fine, but it's just not a genre that I am reaching for as much, because I think I'm all classics out for a bit at least. Then we have one that I still fully expect for this to be a 5-star. I just never even got it. It wasn't even like a DNF, technically, because I never started this book. I just kept pushing it to other months, and I never got to it. And that's really sad because I'm super anticipating it. And that's Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. This is Tasha Suri's first book. And if you know me, you know I loved the Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. So I was super, super looking forward to her first duology, and Empire of Sand is the first of those. I know that this book has a romance in it, it has politics, it kind of has Tasha Suri's like slow and steady pace. That's all things I've heard about this. All of those things the Jasmine Throne also had. So I think that this one is going to be a hit and a 5-star for me when I pick it up. And I do plan to do that in 2022. So you will see it most likely on another 5-star predictions video, but I just didn't get to it in this time limit that I set myself. Then another one of those, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing it because I just never got to it. I'm going to read this one on audiobook, which is not the same for most of, like, I didn't read most of these books on audiobook, but I do have very limited time for audiobooks because of my hectic schedule. And so it takes me a lot longer to get through them than I'm used to. And I keep overstocking my TBRs with audiobooks. And this is one that, again, got pushed, no matter the fact that I still think this will be a 5-star. And like Empire of Sand, I will be reading it next year and will be putting it on one of these 5-star predictions videos. And that is The Gatekeeper Staff by Antoine Bondelay. This is a self-published, like, young YA book about a camp for magical kids, like kids with magical powers or something, and it has to do with Orishas, so like West African mythology, and I am super excited for this book, and I think it will be a 5-star if I can ever get to it. And then the final book on this list, I actually did read, and I read it this month, and that is Frostheart by Jamie Littler. This was a middle grade that I know is very, like, you can probably tell from the name Frostheart and the cover, it's like a very cold, like wintry read. It's basically this boy is a song weaver. That's his magical power. He can make magic happen through song, but he's very much feared by the village that has kind of taken him in. He's orphaned, he doesn't have parents, and this village kind of has taken him in and passed him around, but they see him as a troublemaker, they don't want him to sing, they see him as a bad omen, and so eventually he ends up having to leave his village aboard the Frostheart, which is like this snow sled ship thing, and they go through this frozen ocean landscape kind of, and that's it. Like, I can't tell you very much else. He has a guardian who is a Yeti, and their relationship was cute. This one I gave like a 3.75 stars, mostly because it felt very young. And okay, that's not I don't want to count that against it, because really this book should more be like a 3.25 or something, 3.5, but I gave it like 3.75, which I round up to 4 on Goodreads, because I know that it's for a younger audience and I know it's not for me. But what I will say is, when I've read middle grades and they've been 5 stars favorites, they have felt like they were still digestible for me and intriguing to me, and maybe a bit more subtle than this was. And like, I mean, middle graders, I think, could love them. I could love them. Things like Nevermore, Amari. These are things that I think are just genuinely so wonderful. And Frostheart, I'm sure, is wonderful too, just not for me. Frostheart is definitely more for a younger audience. Like, I could see children reading this. Like, no, I would feel comfortable giving this to like an 8, 9, 10-year-old who is reading at a high level, especially in the 8-year-old range. They definitely need to be reading a little bit more on a higher level. But it's very short and it's very easy to grasp. It kind of doesn't let you infer anything. It kind of like bashes you over the head with stuff. So this one feels like a little bit of a younger middle grade. Thank you for watching. These are some of the 5-star predictions that I talked about today, and I will see you next time. Let me know what a 5-star prediction that came true is for you, or one that you really wanted to be 5 stars but that did not work out. And I will see you next time. Bye!